Security National Mortgage Corporation is licensed in Washington State and is an equal housing lender. Opinions discussed on this program should not be deemed the opinion of Security National Mortgage, its parent company, or affiliates. Content is based upon information considered reliable, but neither Security National Mortgage or its affiliates warrants its completeness, accuracy, or is it a commitment of any kind. Terms and conditions apply. All loans are subject to underwriter approval company NMLS ID number 3116.
You're listening to Real Estate Radio Northwest. Real Estate Radio Northwest, in cooperation with Business Radio 1300 KKOL, brings you local real estate and finance expert Nick Neal, along with author and radio personality Shelley Dudley. They're here each week to bring you the honest truth about the Puget Sound real estate market. So now, here are Nick Neal and Shelley Dudley.
Hi, friends in Seattle, Bellevue, Kirkland, all the way up to Everett and all the way down to Tacoma. I got that backwards again, didn't I? Or did you get that right?
You did it right
Is
this
that
time.
right? Nice. Okay. I hope you're having a great Saturday. I'm Nick Neal. I'm here with my co-host, Shelley Dudley. How you doing, Shelley?
Good afternoon, Nick. I'm great. How are you?
We're doing good. We're here to share our stories with you. Stories about real people just like you who are buying and selling real estate, building and protecting wealth, and working hard to create a stable financial future for themselves and their families. And we're also here to help you with pre-approvals. That's our big thing right now. We've got a lot of people out there looking for homes, and we're going to get you set up before you even go see your realtor. Or if you have seen one already, you can still do this, but
definitely before you choose your home.
Before you choose your home, or even start looking at price ranges.
Yeah,
It's
it makes
important
sense.
to do that.
In today's marketplace, you just got to do it.
Yeah, but Real Estate Radio Northwest is sponsored by Security National Mortgage, and we're just there to take care of you with those pre-approvals. And it takes about 15 to 20 minutes. Give us a call. We'll set up a time that's good for you. We get some basic information about your current situation, and we'll get you a pre-approval that's like a golden key to be able to go out and find the house that you want and know that you're going to be pre-approved and ready to make the offer. Know what your monthly payments are. Won't be surprises there. Find out what the taxes are and make sure everything's in line.
Find out what you can afford.
Exactly. Find out what you can afford and then what you're comfortable with on a budget.
Exactly. So just call us at 888-638-1117.
That's a good one. 888-638-1117.
That's it.
Or you can find us online at realestateradionorthwest.com.
And while you're there, go ahead and like us on Facebook.
Yep, do that as well. Real Estate Radio Northwest is part of the Real Estate Radio Network. We're a national network of radio hosts dedicated to the timely delivery of balanced truths about local real estate markets and current financial matters in an effort to help Americans maintain good credit, minimize debt, and achieve the dream of homeownership. We're doing this one family at a time, and we're here for you. We really are. So 888-638-1117. And then the rest of our queue in our website as well. We've got a lot of good financial advisors and CPAs.
Absolutely. There's a wealth of knowledge on our website.
Realtors, like the realtors that we love over at Keller Williams in Bothell.
Credit repair, staging, attorneys, CPAs, financial planners.
Most likely anything that you need with finance or
And now
accounting.
authors.
And now authors. We're going to have an author. Yeah, let's get to it.
It's going to be a fun show today.
We've got a really neat guest with us today, and I had a show card that we put together for him, and it kind of just lays out. You can kind of get a picture when you hear this, but in the fall of 2008, our guest was an executive at Washington Mutual, was working there, and then you kind of can get a feel for what's coming next. But now he's an author, and he's written a book called The Fall of My Life. It's Robert Cantrall. It's good to have you with us today, Robert.
Thanks for having me, Nick. And, since I have the mic, I just want to publicly say what a pleasure it was to meet you and your wife, Donna. And just let people know, since you're a radio personality, that people can't see what a lovely couple you are together.
Oh, thanks. So. Well, we feel the same way about you and Sherry. And that when I did the plug out to Keller Williams and Bothell, I wanted to expand on that. Sherry Jensen is the person that brought us together and got this all set up. And I've known her for a little over a year from Keller Williams Wallingford. We just love Keller Williams agents because they're so solid and in with their team concept and real professional, the way that they support each other and work together kind of as a unit. And Sherry is somebody that we've been involved with, and she actually disappeared for a couple months. She had, kind of needed some time to herself and for family and that type of thing, and was leaving the Wallingford office and said, Nick, I'll call you in a couple months when I'm back and things are going again. And called me a couple weeks ago, and she said, I'm back. And in Bothell, I've got Ryland, my partner, set up with me, and we're running a team of about 35 agents, and Troy Anderson, another cool team that we work with, Team Troy, who's also in Bothell now, are sharing this annex. So they're out in Bothell, Keller Williams, the #1 shop in Snohomish, and just doing great things. But that's where the connection came from, and that was really fun time with you at the Columbia Tower Club, and
Yes.
getting to meet each other's others,
Yes,
significant
it
others.
was.
So, yeah, well, it's sure good to have you here today, and it's just such an interesting image in my mind when I talk about 2008 and Washington Mutual and kind of the big picture of what happened with banking and everything, because we were involved with that. My story's a little bit different than yours, but similar along the same lines as to what happened.
Yeah.
And it's going to be neat to find out more about what that journey that you went through did for you in your life and where it took you and the resulting book. And that's really what we're here to share with people, is just that experience and help plug your book a little bit too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But let's start with you before this economic meltdown that happened
Well, even
in
before that,
2008.
yeah,
that's
like
what I said.
background.
That's what I just
Yeah.
said. Let's start before that.
Sure.
Way before.
Yes, like where were you born
There you
and
go.
where did you grow up?
Yes. In the beginning, I was born. I jokingly like to say that I was raised by wolves.
Oh.
And then I went through the school of hard knocks in a state of confusion. And that's kind of what it feels like. But, a little more reality there is I was born in a very small town of 150 people out in the wheat country in eastern Oregon.
Wow.
And I attended a high school. My class was 35 people. So that kind of tells you
That is a small town.
Environmentally,
That's really
what I
small.
grew up in. You basically didn't get to decide who your friends were. You had to get along with everyone because there just weren't enough to go around.
Yeah.
But, family-wise, I was the youngest of 4 children in our family, and I have very fond memories of my very early childhood. And then pretty much late grade school, middle school time, I was a very troubled youth, was very confused and got in trouble with the law, just really didn't understand life, what was going on. The home had changed a lot. I had 3 very older siblings who had left the home by then. And, I think what I want people to know that sets the stage for this book is essentially the family that I have was a family where the word love was never spoken. There weren't hugs given out. There was not praise given out, but there also wasn't any anger shown. It was just a stoic,
Emotionless kinda.
unemotional
Wow.
family. And so the reality is I kind of feel like I was born and I just entered adulthood. And I entered
Kind of
it.
in a vacuum almost.
I entered it completely unprepared, with no tools for relationships, social skills, and in particular any intimacy skills. So what I talk about in the book is that stage of my life was pretty much, if you liked me, I liked you. That was my criteria, and that's all it took. And I didn't know what I wanted or where I was going or anything. I think my only saving grace was, for whatever reason, I was born fast, and discovered that literally in grade school. Ran in junior Olympics at the state level as early as 5th grade. Was pretty successful at that at high school, and wound up going to college and running track as well.
Nice.
At the University of Oregon, nonetheless, Tracktown, USA.
So you found something you could focus on and really put your energy into that gave you a positive reinforcement
It
back.
gave me a different
Kinda started
feeling
getting-
other than I had otherwise, is about all I can really say. I really didn't know what it was, other than when I was running, I felt like I wasn't standing still.
Yeah.
So at that point in your life, were you kind of feeling like a rudderless ship, really?
That's a really good way of saying it, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is Nick Neal with Real Estate Radio Northwest. We've got Robert Cantrall, author of the book The Fall of My Life, with us. Shelley Dudley here as well. And Robert, can you bring us up a little into your career and how you got started in banking, and once you developed into your working career?
Yeah, how I got started in banking was really quite by accident. I moved up to Seattle in 1981, and I had worked a couple of years managing Skipper's restaurants. There's not too many of those around anymore. And those are very long, hard hours. And I sat down one day and said, I want a 9-to-5 job. I think banking sounds like a neat thought, right? And I literally went down, it was Seafirst back in those days, and went down and they had a policy in HR where anybody could walk in and have a 10-minute interview with HR. Way different environment than it is today.
Oh, yes.
And I did that in my 10 minutes of fame, and they called me back the next day and offered me a job, and didn't know anything about finance, did not have a finance degree, had no accounting classes or anything. And they had a thing called the American Institute of Banking back in those days, and I started going to night school and learning my debits and credits and cash flow and all of that. And about 4 years later, I was a finance manager for a mortgage company called CityFed.
Wow, interesting. And so were you trained in the company then? Was the
Yeah.
schooling that you went
Yeah,
through
the
that was part of
company
the
paid
company?
for all that. They were like community Seattle U classes where professionals that were actually in the field taught the classes as opposed to professionals, and all the students were adults that were actually in the work environment.
Yeah, I've heard of a number of people going through that,
Yeah.
and a couple of them are still associated today. You know,
Yeah.
their mentor or their boss has kind of moved past, and now the person that they taught is actually in a higher position, but still looks at that person as a mentor.
Yeah.
But it sounded like a really neat organization.
It was. I did that for 3 years, and it was pretty much a whole nother degree.
Wow. And then right into banking, and so you progressed through a few companies before you ended up at Washington Mutual.
Yeah, I like to laugh that I've worked for every bank that used to be in Seattle.
Yeah. That had a Seattle or Washington name associated with it, too. We used to have a lot of them.
We did.
There were, and I worked for all of them.
Oh,
Yep.
man.
But why
Yeah.
the move from bank to bank, do you think?
Well, they were all forced instances. The Seafirst went down and Bank of America bought them, and there were huge reorganizations. So I went to the mortgage company. CityFed was owned by an S&L in New Jersey, and during the S&L crisis, they were seized by what was the RTC back then, and we bought the mortgage company away from them, and so I was part of a company called Transcoastal, and then it went bankrupt, and just a
jumped
whole
around.
series of events like that. The
Yes.
banking was just a very volatile industry when deregulation hit.
Yeah. Well, interesting. We're going to talk more with you about how you led up to Washington Mutual and then what happened with that situation and how it led to where you're at today. That's really going to be neat. So when we get back, Robert Cantrall, ex-Washington Mutual, author now, The Fall of My Life. We'll be right back after the break.
I was born 6
Real Estate Radio Northwest is hosted by local real estate and finance expert Nick Neal. The purpose of the show is to help customers understand what's really going on in our local real estate market. We're teaching you the why and the how-to so you'll always be one step ahead of everyone else. Whether you need to sell your home for top dollar, refinance and save money, or even buy a bargain in the Puget Sound, Nick Neal can help. Call Nick directly at 888-638-1117. That's 888-638-1117. Take advantage of speaking with Nick Neal anytime you're entering a real estate transaction. Having someone who can answer all your questions that truly cares about you and your family's best interest is priceless. Call Nick Neal today and you'll be glad you did. 888-638-1117. That's 888-638-1117. Or you can visit realestateradionorthwest.com.
You're listening to Real Estate Radio Northwest with your hosts, Nick Neal and Shelley Dudley. Now, here are Nick and Shelley.
Welcome back. I'm Nick Neal with Real Estate Radio Northwest. I've got Shelley Dudley here. We're on KKOL Business Radio, AM 1300. And we're talking to Robert Cantrall, author of The Fall of My Life, an ex-Washington Mutual executive. Just some really neat background on where he came from and how he got into his banking career. And we're going to talk more about that career with Washington Mutual and how it led him through his life to where he's at today. But before we do that, we want to remind you, Security National Mortgage, we're ready here for you. Refinance is still a little bit, but we just are so excited about the purchase opportunities that are out there right now. And we're just talking about all the neat stuff happening in and around our building here in Seattle, and with Amazon growth and the South Lake Union growth
Absolutely.
and the viaduct. And if they can ever get that darn Bertha, is it even moving again? Is it still stuck underground?
They're still waiting to figure out how to get down to it so
Oh
they
my
can
gosh.
fix it.
Yeah, you're right over here, Robert. You probably know more
Yeah.
about that. And yeah, I haven't felt any vibrations lately in the ground from like the
But I tell you what,
jackhammer
both the
going.
commercial real estate market and the residential real estate market in Seattle are very exciting right
It
now.
is, yeah. It's a neat place. And the neat thing right now is if you can get in, get a pre-approval done, and start looking before spring and summer, as things are coming on the market, if you can kind of get a jump on people, you're going to be in a good place and maybe not quite as busy, during the spring and summer times. Like buying convertibles. Everybody goes for the convertible during the summer. Housing market can be similar. So give us a
Yes.
call. 888-638-1117. Just need a few minutes of your time. We'll get you a good, solid pre-approval with a good national bank, Security National Mortgage. And we've got a lot of experience. I've got a great team to help run those loans for you. So even if you're a little concerned about credit or something, give us a call, and we've got the right people that can help fix that for you and get you set up. RealEstateRadioNorthwest.com is our website. Check that out and like us on Facebook when you get a chance.
Indeed.
And Robert Cantrall, did you get tired of being called an ex-2008 Washington Mutual executive?
Oh, not really.
I mean, you kind of got to go with it, right?
It definitely gets people's attention.
really
Everybody,
does.
particularly in this community, there were so many employees and so many customers that the story touched everybody's life in some way. So it's always a good conversation starter that I was there when it went down.
I can imagine. So what was it like before it got into trouble? What
that's
was
what
it
I-
like working there?
Yeah, well, I just started working there in 2006. So, in reality, they had already started doing some of the silly things at that point. But even at that point, it was still considered one of the prize employment opportunities to have. So I was very excited and very privileged to start when I did. And that first couple of years that I was there, we were doing a lot of things. We were still in growth mode, and we were making things happen. And I was in the corporate finance group, so I was very close to how the company was financially positioned. And those 2 years had zero concerns about my job or about the direction of the company. And then I think as history tells us, in the beginning of 2008 is really when things started to get shaky. We went through a series of budget cuts and layoffs, and we had to go out and get some more capitalization to shore up our reserves for what we thought was coming. Nobody had any clue what was really coming, but we were positioning ourselves for a pretty good foreclosure run from the kinds of loans that were being done.
And that was something that you guys started later in well, you said 2006. Was that about the time, I know, the purchase of Long Beach Mortgage and the subprime market that they got into? That was a big part of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, that had all happened just prior to me coming aboard, so it was already in flight, and the whole subprime loan scenario that went with the purchase.
That was a big part of the anchor kind of that drug such a big, beautiful company with all the horses and trailers and the stagecoaches and all the marketing and stuff. And I mean, that was just, they were Washington. That was a big, I'm not quite like the Seahawks, but maybe like the Huskies at least, you know?
It was big.
On a good season. Yeah.
And that whole market was a big shiny penny for everybody.
Yeah.
Literally everybody, from realtors to loan officers to appraisals to investors to banks. Everybody was making a lot of money off that. So that's what was so attractive.
Yeah, like our CEO at Countrywide said, everybody in America deserves a house. I was like, really? Even the guy that doesn't make his car payments? I'm like, yes, he does. We got to get him a house. Even if they won't lend him for a car, we're going to lend him for a house. I'm like, are you sure that's a good idea? Yes. I said, everybody. All right. You're the boss.
Yeah.
So we did it.
And it became that group think thing, where everybody's nodding their head, and if anybody thinks they disagree, they're going to get kicked out of the room.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and what was
Wow.
your life like at that time? I mean, I know at that time, my wife and I were, we were buying, when we were telling our clients, buy the biggest house you can afford and figure out how to make the payments until you can appreciate and make a couple $100,000 selling it.
Yep.
And
That's
then
what I did.
the fanciest car and the biggest boat and
Yep.
Is that what you were going through too?
That's exactly what I
Okay.
did. I bought, my house was $1.2 million at the beginning of 2008, and I had a 38-foot yacht and a Lexus and a little convertible sports car, and kids were starting to go to college and all of that. I was buying into it because the value of the home was appreciating 20-30% every year. It was insane.
Yeah, yeah. And then
Wow.
what happened, on that day? You talk about in the beginning of your book, the 50,000 emails that went out. Did you know ahead of time?
So again, because of the position that I was in finance, I knew a lot more than the average employee, particularly in the branch unit. And no, I did not. It was a complete shock to me. I can tell you that from what I know, the bank was financially positioned to survive even up till that August, when everybody, there were a couple other banks that had already failed, and the auto industry was in trouble, and people were starting to get a glimpse of how bad it really was. Washington Mutual was still financially positioned to survive. And I'm just here to tell you that there was no reason for Washington Mutual to fail. There were deals made behind closed doors by some very powerful and influential people that made that happen, and of course I think there was kind of a feeding frenzy with the media that caused a run on the deposits that didn't help. But Washington Mutual should still be here today.
Wow, yeah. Well, this is Nick Neal with Real Estate Radio Northwest. Got Shelley Dudley, my co-host, and author Robert Cantrall, talking about his time, the last days of Washington Mutual. Yeah, and J.P. Morgan Chase. I know when we see the movies and the miniseries and stuff now with all the big guys in politics in Washington calling all these Ken Lay and Jamie Dimon out to D.C. to talk in, at 6 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon about how they were going to fix this. Washington Mutual was left out of that. They weren't in that room, right? Is that part of what happened?
That's exactly what happened, yeah.
Yeah, and so J.P. Morgan Chase came in and basically took you guys over.
Right.
Yeah.
They brokered a deal with the government. The government technically closed the bank, and sold it to J.P. Morgan Chase, and it opened up that Monday morning as Chase.
Wow.
There had to have been a time where you were just reeling from the shock of all this.
It was an unbelievable shock. I can't even describe it. I'd lost my job plenty of times from layoffs and bank closures and all of that stuff. So that wasn't a surprise to me. But for a whole institution to go down, that, if people don't remember, this was the largest bank failure in the history of the United States, and remains to be today.
Because they were everywhere. I mean, you could go into Washington Mutual in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't just a Washington institution anymore.
No.
Yeah, man. And so how did that, was that part of it because it was such a big company, and then the industry too kind of shaky? Did that shake your foundation personally as well? Is that why it was different than some of the other jobs you lost?
It did. Clearly 2008, I call it the Great Recession in my book. It was a penny short of the Great Depression, quite frankly, if you really stop and look at some of the numbers. 10 million foreclosures on homes, 10 million people lost their jobs. Whether those were the same 10 million, I don't know, but I would guess
probably,
they were.
Huh?
Or at least related.
Yeah.
But, just in the local market, there were 5,000 people in the corporate office in the brand new Washington Mutual building, and those people all lost their jobs. And I remember reading in the media a year later as things were unwinding, and you could see all of the mom-pop shops downtown closing one by one, that for every employee at WAMU that lost their job, 2.5 other people lost their jobs that were supporting that market.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah, we talk about that going the other way. I've never heard it put like that before.
Yeah.
Whether it's a house being built or a government job, how the other peripheral jobs that come up from that, it's amazing, the numbers. But yeah, if you do the reverse, you take a job away like that and you pull another 2 or 3 with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's not like you could actually plan for something like this. How did this affect your life? You personally?
I don't think anybody can plan for it, and more so, I don't think anybody should have to plan for it.
Exactly.
In the great nation that we are, the number of people who, maybe they didn't lose their jobs, but they lost their retirement funds.
That was another part of it, yeah.
It was just incredible, the impact that it had on the nation.
Yeah, well, and the stocks with Washington Mutual, that was something, that was like a blue chip, almost like a Microsoft, or at least, an IBM, somewhere in between maybe. As far as security, it had our local state name on it. People had a lot of money in Washington Mutual with retirement and 401k, and like you said, stock options. I know I've been in companies like that too, where they give you a benefit if you invest your retirement in company stock.
Yeah, part of their retention strategy is to give you stock in the company. So all of my retirement was in the WAMO stock.
Yeah.
Ouch.
As an example.
And you lost it all.
Yeah, and a lot of those, were the bonuses that I received along the way. So yeah, it was all gone just like that. And I remember people walking up to me, particularly that first week and first month while we were all kind of waiting for the Chase people to come out and decide what was going to happen with everybody. There was a lot of uncertainty in that time frame, and people would just walk up to me and say, "So really? I mean, I just lose all that?" It was just absolutely incomprehensible to them.
Yeah. That it was gone.
That it was gone.
But I still got my quarterly statement. I just got in the mail 2 weeks ago.
I still got this piece of paper.
It says $250,000 on it right there in Washington Mutual stock.
Wow.
Yeah, well, and you even mentioned, some people right near the end there that just couldn't believe it. They're buying the stuff up for pennies on the dollar.
That's right. We
Thinking it was gonna
even
come
had
around.
people within corporate finance that were a higher level than me that were purchasing stock in the last month because they were convinced it would rebound and they were going to make a killing.
Wow. Yeah. And then just the drain that had on your family. We're just about ready to get into a break here, but we want to get into the positive side now and where all of that has led to with your
Right,
book. And,
right.
and that's just a neat story. And you mentioned the other day when we were talking that you hadn't planned in life to be an author.
Not
that
at all.
That wasn't the direction that you thought you'd go. But after about 10 people told you that you should write a book, it's kind of like time after time, you think about it once, twice, 3 times maybe. Well, maybe it's an idea starts forming in your head. And then that came to that point where that happened. And when we get back, let's talk about that. Let's get out of the Washington Mutual stuff and get on to the positive of how this has turned around into something that's really neat and maybe probably made you a stronger person.
Great.
I'm guessing. Well,
Thanks.
Nick Neal with Real Estate Radio Northwest. We're just about ready to head into a break here. When we get back, we're going to be talking more with Robert Cantrall about his new book, The Fall of My Life. And you can get that, I assume, at Amazon and other places.
Yes.
Yep, and we'll give you contact information too. So stay with us. We'll be right back and talk about Moclips and a little cottage out there. Neat story.
We will.
This program is brought to you by the Real Estate Radio Network. Visit realestateradio.us for more info. That's realestateradio.us.
Hi, Nick Neal here, co-host of Real Estate Radio Northwest. I'm thrilled that I get to speak with you every week and bring you the truth about our local real estate market. A lot of the stuff you hear in the news is based on national numbers and really doesn't mean much to us here in Puget Sound. If you want the inside knowledge about what's going on in our real estate market, that's what I'm here for. Whether you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or even refinance your home, we can help you make an educated decision about what's going to be best for you and your family. It's easy. We give you the real facts, you decide where to go from there. We're here to help. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back from the break soon.
Call Nick Neal today, and you'll be glad you did. 888-638-1117. That's 888-638-1117. Or you can visit realestateradionorthwest.com.
You're listening to Real Estate Radio Northwest with your hosts, Nick Neal and Shelley Dudley. Now again, here are Nick and Shelley.
Joshua. Really? We said rock, Joshua. Rock. Not Bach. That was rock with an R, not Bach with a B. What happened, man? We're trying to stay awake here. We've all had a busy week. It's lots of good stuff going on.
I think it's catching up with us today.
It is a little bit. Well, this is Nick Neal with Real Estate Radio Northwest, and we're just excited for this new, hard metal rock piece to come out and wake us up. And I don't know what that was, but that wasn't no rock.
Rock with a B.
Was that Chopin?
It's
Mozart.
It was the rock of the ages.
Mozart Concerto Number 20. I should have known. Yeah, not confused with Bach.
I love Joshua's musical taste.
He is. He's awesome.
Even when he's playing jokes on
Even
us.
when like the Jetsons. that was a funny one, too. Or Space 2010. Yeah, with that creepy voice. Anyway, let's get back to what we're talking about here.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Northwest.
On Business Radio, KKOL AM 1300. And getting pre-approved. We don't want to forget that before we get back into talking with Robert Cantrall and his little cottage out in Moclips.
Indeed. Well, it's an important thing to do in today's real estate marketplace. You definitely want to get pre-approved.
Yep. And the other shout out to investors. Boy, if you're investing, some of the busiest shows we've had investor finance real estate people on, and 10 calls from one show, and 4 people were able to start finding investment properties through the show here. So That's a busy thing going on right now. So if you've been thinking about investing in real estate, we can help you do that.
Oh, yeah. And
Got
it's-
amazing loans at Washington, or at Security National. I was at Washington Mutual.
Try and get a loan
Security
at
National.
Try and get a loan at Washington Mutual now.
That was weird.
I don't think so.
That's Security National to help with financing investment properties. Number of properties in a lot of cases isn't a problem. If you've got 4 or 10 properties, we've got other financing options for you. If you don't have 4 or 10, we can help you get them and set you up as part of your retirement account because they can't take that away from you. That's not a stock option. That's not something that's going to be affected by moves and shifts in corporate America. That's real earth and dirt and buildings that you can count on for your future.
Indeed. So
Cash
call
flow.
us at
Yeah.
888-638-1117.
888-638-1117.
That's the
And
one.
we'll set you up with an awesome realtor, like part of the RICO team out at Keller Williams in Bothell, or Team Troy.
Yeah, they're cool
Troy
out
Anderson. They're great people out there. We can help you with the financing. They can help you find the property. Or if it's in another area, give us a call. We'll get you set up on the real estate side as well. www.realestateradionorthwest.com is the website. And now back to author, Robert Cantrall. It's got to be pretty cool being called author.
It's I'm still trying to get used to that, actually.
So you didn't actually set out to be an author. How did this idea come about?
Never in my wildest imagination did I ever think I would be an author. In fact, after I wrote the book and I was going through the publication process, I learned that 90% of the people in the United States think they have a book in them.
Wow.
5% actually do it.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So I'm one of the 10 who didn't think I did, but one of the 5
That
who
actually did it.
So I'm definitely
That's
a
even more of a rare
statistical
breed.
anomaly.
You
Yeah.
defy the odds.
Just so you know, that's Robert Cantrall, author and I just can't stop saying it, Washington Mutual executive from 2008, because that sets the place for the book. So if you're just joining us, we've been talking to him about his background with Washington Mutual and banking and how that led up to a point where the rug was basically pulled out from under a lot of people, and he was one of them, and how he reacted to that. And after about 10 people telling him, you got a book in you should do it, how did you end up at Moclips? Can you really take a little time to describe
Yeah,
where
let
that
me
went
give you
to
a
and
little
then
background.
Put us in that little cottage at Moclips at the end.
Into that, because
Yeah.
it was after the failure of WAMU, I was on what they called a transition team, helping them take over for about 9 months there, and then there was a 2-year period that I was unemployed. And it was the time where most of the contents of this book is about that time frame and what I learned about myself. And so shortly after I became reemployed, after that time of unemployment, I had been working with a lot of career coaches and career counselors. I had a series of close friends, a very small circle of close friends who had over this time become a larger circle of close friends who were all eyewitnessing the transformation that I was going through during this time. So probably my closest friend was the first one to say, there's a story here that could really benefit other people. And literally over the course of a couple of months, one at a time, by the end of that time, there was a good dozen that were all telling me the same thing. And it's like, okay, there's a message the universe is trying to get through to me. And I kind of went through a process where I became willing to do that. And, I flunked creative writing in high school. I don't know grammar. I don't know sentence structure. You need to understand, I am not a technical writer at all. But I became willing to do it, and I decided that the beach was a place that I wanted to do that. I wanted to be away, took the time off work, be able to concentrate on it, to be able to get away from people. It was in March, so it was practically the dead of winter on the beach where nobody goes there. And I got online and found this little place that I wanted to have for 10 days, so I was looking for something that wasn't going to cost me an arm and a leg. And it was just a beautiful little cottage literally right on the beach, so I could get up in the morning and take a walk on the beach and kind of prepare myself for some writing. So I went down there and...
Did you know it was at the end of the world when you signed up for it, or...? Moclips is pretty. I mean, you can't get any farther out.
Yeah, the road goes about a mile further and ends at the Indian Reservation.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, that's. I didn't know, but I think there was some divine intervention in this whole process,
Yeah.
and there was literally nobody around, and fortunately it was very rainy and very stormy, so you wanted to be inside, right? It would have been a lot harder to write if it was nice outside.
What was the cottage like? What was the environment like? And
The cottage was literally like a little pretty much like a hotel. It was just a little studio, had a bed and a desk where I typed on, and a little kitchenette so I could.
was it self-standing? Was
cook-
it actually a?
Oh no, there were I think 3.
Okay.
There was like a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom in this the whole place that this couple ran, and so I got the little studio because that's all I needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
But-
how did you get started? Did you just jump in and it just flowed, or did it
Yeah,
take a little while?
you know,
a lot of walking, or
I went there with the title in my head that had literally come to me in the middle of the night. I was woke up in the middle of the night with this title. And I went there with kind of an outline, which was really not a whole lot more than the names of the chapters, and a lot of stuff in my head. And I sat down, I brought a computer, a little laptop, and I brought a lot of the books that I reference in the back of this book that were real good resources for me through this journey. And I started to type, and 3 days later, I had typed the original manuscript. to
oh
this
my
book.
God!
Wow.
In 3
It-
days.
That's
It was almost nonstop. I had thoughts coming to me so fast that every once in a while I'd have to stop and write a note on a piece of paper to make sure I didn't forget it while I was finishing typing this thought.
Wow.
I was just stunned. It was just a complete brain dump. Again, to me, yeah, I look back on it and it was just nothing short of a spiritual experience for me. You know, I've gone back a couple of times and read this book to prepare myself for interviews, and I went, did I write that?
It's really
That's some pretty good stuff.
It is good stuff, and it's well written grammatically. I wanted to say well written grammatically. It created a new word.
Yeah, of course.
But
You know, I went through several editing processes
yeah,
along the
but
way.
just
as
all of
books
the,
do.
all of the information that flows too. Yeah, grammatically, but the way that the information flows and the sentence structure
Yeah.
and just, you know, as you're reading it, you know, what you're taking in, it really is a good book. I've read a lot of this type of stuff and a lot of 10s and 12s and 13s, you know, people that have written books, and this is the 10th and 12th and 13th. And this is really up there. I mean, it is good stuff. The Fall of My Life by Robert Cantrall. Track it down because it's just a good read. And part of it, you know, because I relate to you, you're a strong guy, and you just share so much in here about yourself and the journey that you went through. And it's just amazing to be able to have those feelings and relate to them with you. It just
Yeah.
really is a neat
I really
experience to
had
read.
2 goals in writing this as far as style. And, you know, I'm sitting here just having a conversations with you guys, and people are listening to us on the radio. And when I wrote the book, I wanted to write it like I was just sitting having a conversation with you, and you could visualize me just sitting across the table and telling this story to you. So it's a very personal story. And the second thing was I wanted to be brutally honest. And I've gotten a lot of emails back from people who've read the book about how refreshing it was to have a man be honest to God knows how many people will read this book.
Yeah, and I just think that shows strength in you. You know, I didn't take anything away from it that this was somebody that was beat up and didn't come back. I mean, it's like a gladiator kind of thing, a powerful man that experienced something that was, you know, could have brought anybody to their knees, and you came back from it, you know, better and stronger and learned from it through diversity and everything that you had in your past. You know, who knows what prepares us for stuff and separates the person that goes through something like this and jumps off the building, you know, versus somebody that regroups and sits down, and maybe it is that just being able to just keep powering until you get to a point where, I don't know, visualization or reality of what you need to do comes to you. But, you know, some people don't have that strength. I don't know, but I was impressed.
Robert, we're about to go into a break, and when we come back, I'd love to ask you some of the things that you learned from this experience. But Nick alluded a moment ago to our listeners hunting down your book. Before we go out into a break, can you tell us where they can actually find it? Make it easy for them.
Did I
Yes.
allude?
You did. You
I don't
said
remember the last time I alluded.
You did just a minute ago.
It is on Amazon, and in the ebook form, it's at Barnes & Noble, and on the ebook form, it's also available directly from the publisher, Balboa Press. And you can go to my website, bobcantrall.com, and you could purchase a autographed copy of the book directly from me on my website.
Nice.
Oh, wow,
So
that's
do
cool.
that. That's a cool way to
Yeah,
do it. Yeah.
that's-
Do you use a Sharpie for those too?
No,
We got to
but
get you a Sharpie. I know when you signed mine, it was a regular pen. We got to get you a Sharpie.
I did get a very nice pen for Valentine's Day to
Nice.
sign books with. I just didn't have it with me that night.
That's okay. Yeah, well, when we get back, we'll talk more about your life now and where it leads into and the other things that you want to do because you've got some new ambitions.
I do.
And it doesn't sound like you want to go back to banking.
No.
Really? Because it's getting a little better,
Well, I can't wait to hear what direction your life is going.
Yeah. Yep. There comes the music. Does that mean it's time? It's not Bach or Beethoven this time.
It is.
That sounds like rock again.
It sounds like rock. Thanks, Joshua. So stay with us through the break. You're listening to Real Estate Radio Northwest on KKOL, AM 1300 Business Radio. And your host is Nick Neal. I'm Shelley Dudley. And our guest today is Robert Cantrall. So come back after the break.
What's the name of his book again?
The Fall of My Life.
Nice. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by the Real Estate Radio Network. Visit realestateradio.us for more info. That's realestateradio.us.
Hi, Nick Neal here, co-host of Real Estate Radio Northwest. I'm thrilled that I get to speak with you every week and bring you the truth about our local real estate market. A lot of the stuff you hear in the news is based on national numbers and really doesn't mean much to us here in Puget Sound. If you want the inside knowledge about what's going on in our real estate market, that's what I'm here for. Whether you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or even refinance your home, we can help you make an educated decision about what's going to be best for you and your family. It's easy. We give you the real facts, you decide where to go from there. We're here to help. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back from the break soon.
Call Nick Neal today, and you'll be glad you did. 888-638-1117. That's 888-638-1117. Or you can visit realestateradionorthwest.com.
You're listening to Real Estate Radio Northwest with your hosts, Nick Neal and Shelley Dudley. Now, here are Nick and Shelley.
Boy, I just put my headphones on halfway through that song. I didn't even know we were coming back.
Oh, man, this is
That was
nice.
quick.
Nice music.
Well, Nick Neal with Real Estate Radio Northwest. I got Shelley Dudley rocking out here with me.
Oh, yeah.
Is that better than Mozart that time? I just don't think we're quite Mozart.
Well, I don't mind Mozart, actually.
But not today.
No, not today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a
maybe
long
some other
week.
time. With a different guest.
Yeah. Well, it's been a long week, and it's catching up with me. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I like when
Yeah.
Joshua rocks us out.
Well, nice. Well, we've had a great first three segments here today.
Oh,
we're
yes,
we're
we
anxious
have.
to talk more with Robert Cantrall, author. Robert Cantrall, book The Fall of My Life, about his experience during, before, and after
The economic meltdown.
economic meltdown. And it really was a meltdown, taken on by subprime and the banking. We've all been through what's happened, but it really did affect people from across the country. But just that one particular situation with Washington Mutual, living in Washington, being a part of that company and the history, was kind of a unique deal and a little more extreme maybe than some other people faced. And you've just taken it to great levels as far as where you've come. And looking back, it's kind of a weird question, and I know a lot of good is coming out of it. I don't want to say, are you glad that happened, but it was kind of part of a journey maybe that you felt you had to face in life.
Clearly.
How do you look back on that, and what do you think about
a
it?
phrase that I've walked away with is, you don't know what you want until you know what you don't want.
Yeah.
And I have definitely learned a lot from this journey. I've learned that in particularly, it's kind of learning through the experiences like this to know what I want, who I want to be, who I want to surround myself with. These are all things that I didn't even know were concepts, that I had those choices, that I could make those choices.
Interesting. So it sounds like it really caused you to take stock of your life.
That's it in a nutshell. What I would say is, what I experienced is I was stripped of all my material possessions and worldly wealth. And when that happens, you're left with you. Yeah. And so what I discovered was that I am not what I do for a living, what things I own. I am me. And so I had to figure out who I was, is really what happened. And that process was, it including facing fears that I never thought that I could face. Going out to networking events was, oh my God.
You talked
know,
about like that, the most terrifying thing you ever heard.
There's a chapter in the book.
I'm not a
it was
multi-level
probably
marketing
the
guy.
most terrifying thing I ever did. And now it's one of the funnest things
Yeah.
that I do. And just
Wow.
walking through that fear and realizing that I can survive on the other end.
Wow. Yeah. Well, and something you said too about before you didn't choose your friends. You know, if somebody liked you, that you just sort of assumed that
Right.
that was a friend. People that like you, that's your friend, right?
Right.
Regardless of who they are or what their character is or what the background is or if you have anything in common. So you really, I think part of finding out who we are is who we associate ourselves with. And then we talk to those people and we kind of get a greater understanding of who we are from that too. So if you're not associating yourself with the right people, that can be a real
That's
mind
right.
bender too.
That's right.
So how did you learn to put that velvet rope in place that
Well, you know, that lesson actually started when I was out doing networking and trying to understand how to not be terrified from the whole thing. And one of the key things that I discovered, when you walk into a room of 200 people that are all networking and you're afraid, they all are too.
Yeah.
Everybody that's there just wants to be liked.
Yeah.
And when I learned that I can walk up to somebody and show them that I like them first, they're going to like me back.
Sure.
It's
That's
just
cool.
magical.
Yeah.
And I learned that when my purpose was to go to an event like that and to serve and to help rather than to get, that what I wanted out of my life came back to me, not directly from that person, but in ways that I would never have imagined it would come back to me, but it always comes back.
Yeah, yeah, that giver thing, and it has to be something that's real. You know, it's hard to fake that for any length of time because the people that you know, like Sherry Jensen, like your, is it? I'm not going to say fiance, but you guys have to be moving up to that. You guys are just too cute together. But it's just natural for her to do that, but it's so real, you know. And then there are other people that are like, "Oh, let me help you, let me do this," and you can tell it's forced and it's not real, or they're still learning how to do it right.
Right.
But when you can do that right and feel that karma or that energy coming back to you because you're giving and it's natural and you don't ask for stuff back, but it just happens. Isn't that kind of a neat feeling? I mean, just kind of a magical.
I really think that's how we were built. That's how we
Yeah.
were created. That's how we are supposed to interact with each other.
Yeah.
And I think nobody feels better than when they're giving without expecting to receive. I mean, that natural feeling when you know that you're doing it of your own free will and the goodness of your heart, and that makes you realize that you have goodness in your heart, that you are a good person, and everybody wants to feel like they're a good person.
Yeah,
It
then you
just-
start feeling good. And, you know, that was one of the key lessons I learned as I walked through all these things and learned all these things about myself and defined how I felt, how I thought, what did I want, who did I want to surround myself with. It all came down to all I want is what everyone else wants. I want to feel good and I want to be happy.
Yeah.
And so how do I do that? And be very clear and very intentional in how I go about my day to make sure that those two things happen.
Nice, yeah. Well, and one thing about building up all that wealth and stuff too, is it's like the more you get lost in the middle of it. It's like a physical barrier that
You're
that
so right.
buries you.
Because what I found was exactly the opposite. The less I had, the more grateful I was for what I did have.
Yeah.
Wow. And do you also think maybe prior to this experience that you went through, all of that stuff around you was actually a wall between you and looking at yourself?
Me and my authentic me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, because you see some people, they take away all the stuff and there's nothing left.
Right.
I mean, I think those are
That's
the people
where I
that
was.
really have a hard time existing. But at least you kind of came back and found yourself. Some people get down to that point and they realize that they're
stuck.
They're just, there's nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing there.
So it
Yeah.
sounds like a lot of learning has come out of this. I'm amazed because if you were afraid to actually go into a room of people and network with
You
people.
don't seem like that at all to talk to you
Not
now.
at all.
You've gotten over that fear.
I'm a whole
our
different person.
Yeah, I was going to say if our listeners could see how absolutely relaxed and comfortable you are here in the studio with us, it's just amazing.
Yeah. And I just enjoy sharing this story. There's so many different facets of my story and things that I've learned. The letters and emails that I've gotten back from people who've read the book, every person has picked up on a different thing that impacted them directly.
Isn't that cool?
And I just couldn't be more excited about that. So I just love talking about it.
Yeah.
Wow,
Well,
that's pretty
the fall of
amazing.
my life, Robert Cantrall. We're getting close to the end here. So websites, contact information again. Can you share
Again,
that?
my website is bobcantrall.com.
Cantrall. I'm drawing out the L's like the author Bob Cantrall.
Maybe we should spell that for our listeners,
Yeah,
too.
that's a good idea,
Yes.
Shelley. You can spell.
Well, Bob Cantrall, Cantrall,
Yes.
2 L's? Okay.
.com.
.com, there we go.
And on my website, you can purchase a signed copy of the book from me directly. You can also find the book at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Balboa Press.
Which means if probably Nook available too, right?
Yes,
Nice.
Nook and
Yeah.
Kindle.
Cool. That's really cool.
Well, I'm sure glad that you've joined us in the studio today. It has been an absolute pleasure getting to know you.
And
And
real quick too, before we're getting close, what's your future? You talked about public speaking and some other things. What do you see going forward?
Yes, so I've actually decided that writing and speaking is going to be my future, and I'm setting out
Wow.
setting up public speaking engagements, and I have 2 more books in the back of my mind. I've got titles and outlines, and as soon as I get time to sit down or take the time to sit down and do
Back
that,
out to Moclips?
those are on the horizon.
Maybe back to Maui for the next one.
that
That'd be
could
kind of
be,
cool.
or
Yeah.
Mexico,
There you
somewhere
go.
warm.
well,
by
I
the
can't wait
water.
to read those, and I'm sure our listeners are going to be excited
Yeah,
to get
you know
that
what?
too.
So this almost sounds like a Eugenie Jones story
I
in
know.
a way. We had a professional corporate trainer that went to professional jazz singer in her 50s, and she's got CDs and records out now.
Wow,
And living her real life.
excellent.
Yeah.
I'd love to meet her.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. Well, Real Estate Radio Northwest, we're just wrapping up. The music's getting louder. And come back again next Saturday at 2 o'clock and Sundays at 6 right now as well. Be back next weekend. Have a great weekend.
This program is brought to you by the Real Estate Radio Network. Visit realestateradio.us for more info. That's realestateradio.us.
Security National Mortgage Corporation is licensed in Washington State and is an equal housing lender. Opinions discussed on this program should not be deemed the opinion of Security National Mortgage, its parent company, or affiliates. Content is based upon information considered reliable, but neither Security National Mortgage or its affiliates warrants its completeness, accuracy, or is it a commitment of any kind. Terms and conditions apply. All loans are subject to underwriter approval company NMLS ID number 31.